You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, super excited to dive into this week's episode and talk about our takeaways from the episode with Anthony, discussing going to college for profit. And really what it was is a life optimization strategy where he did not experience that lost decade that so many of us can identify with, that decade that is basically just dedicated back to the treading water or repayment of student loans. And to help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I'm doing quite well. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Anthony's story was really interesting. Like we said, the world runs on stories. And it's just cool that this guy went to college. He didn't have A pluses in high school. This was somebody who got a merit tuition and then figured out a way to make money coming out of college. So super cool. We'll talk about it more in depth. But yeah, what's going on in your world?
Well, probably the biggest thing is that my wife and I made about $250 for less than 10 minutes worth of work.
Oh, wow. Sounds interesting.
Well, you know, at the heart of it is the fact that our identities, along with 147 million Americans, were, if not stolen, were exposed to, cyber threats via the Equifax breach of several years ago. That became a class action lawsuit, and there was a settlement. And as part of that settlement, if you were affected by that data breach, you are eligible for $125 in reimbursement or 10 years of free credit monitoring through Equifax.
Okay, so 140 some odd million people get $125
basically
for free.
Your data was exposed. I mean, if there's a way to check, there's a link that we'll put in the show notes that I tracked down. I've saved it, so I'll put it in the show notes for this episode. You go there, you put in your last name and the last four of your social, and I mean, your data was affected. Your name will be on there. You are eligible for this. Now, there's a slight nuance here, in that the more people apply for this, the less they have to pay out per person. So I'm doing myself a disservice by telling everybody I know.
So wait, the $125, so that's not guaranteed. It could be dramatically less than that if everybody signed up.
Well, as of right now, yeah, you have to make the choice. But if you already have free credit monitoring for those of you that are using something like a Credit Karma or something else, you can select the $125 as an option instead. But my understanding upon doing a little bit more research is that they capped what they had to pay out via individual compensation. I think it's actually close to $500 million is what they reserve for individual compensation. But what that basically means is if every single person that actually was affected by this were to apply for reimbursement, the dollar amount would be reduced from the $125 max down to like $4 and some change. But you know what? It might not go viral. But in the meantime, for the hundreds of thousands of people that are listening to this, it is well worth your time. Go to the show notes for today's episode. Check to see if you were affected. And if so, either pick 10 years of free credit monitoring or take that $125. I would make the case that it is your moral duty. It is your moral duty to spend the 10 minutes to claim that $250 check my case, for my spouse and I. So
yeah, that's cool, Jonathan. And I mean, we're always talking about actionable tips. I honestly did not hear about this. This is the first time. So that looks like $250 in my pocket in all likelihood for me and Laura.
That will pay for some portion of the vacation that you're about to take.
Yeah. We're leaving here in about 1 day. I'm pretty excited. We're going to Hawaii, which should be just amazing. And yeah, we actually just came off of, it's so funny, our summer swim season, right? Like this rules our entire lives. Our girls just love to swim, as I've talked about many, many times here on the podcast. And it's just kind of an ever-present part of our lives now. We have a whole support structure there at the pool, like a bunch of friends. And it's just a great time. I mean, it's one of those things, these girls are going to look back when they're my age and say, that was a great childhood. And it's just really, really neat. So yeah, we had our championship meet this last Saturday, and it was really cool, Jonathan. So we had one of these, I talked on a previous episode about Anna and her building a brick in my wall. And if you don't mind, I want to kind of follow up on this because this was this was amazing.
Yeah, dude, let's hear it.
Anna, like I've said before, she's a very good swimmer. And at this championship meet, at like the top level for her 9-10 age group, she was one of the top 3 girls in this one event, in the 100 IM. So all 4 strokes. And she knew that it was basically her and these 2 other girls who were fantastic. And they're all within a second of each other going into this. And Anna was honestly pretty nervous about this. And what we did was we started talking about this one particular event 4 nights before. And we talked about building that brick in her wall and what it would look like to win that event. She wound up visualizing every second of when she sat down in that chair to getting on the blocks to what this was going to look like. I mean, she knew just based on these other 2 girls that she was going to be behind after 50 yards. And then it was going to turn for the breaststroke on the 50, and she was going to pass them, okay, because her breaststroke is fantastic. She was going to come home on the freestyle at 75 yards. And honestly, this is where the brick is. She usually gets very tired. I think, honestly, it's mental because she swims thousands of yards in practice 4 times a week. So she should be fine for 100 yards. But you can see her visibly get tired because she visualized this. And she said, I am going to just destroy that last 25 yards. Like these are the words she's using. And I mean, she thought about every second of it. So Saturday morning comes. I mean, honestly, exactly what we talked about, almost word for word. She pulls up on the blocks. These other 2 girls are there. She's behind after 50. She blows by them in the breaststroke, turns for home. And not only did she not get tired, she swam the best 25 freestyle of her entire life and beat them by 3 seconds.
Whoa.
I mean, it was amazing.
That's like years in swimming.
Yeah, for real. I mean, she was possessed. And that's what it looked like. I've never seen her swim that fast ever in her life, not less at the end of the 100 IM. She dropped 3 full seconds and won by nearly 3 seconds. And it was just really, really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Talk about the power of a mental game, the power of visualizing, the power of just wanting to be that little bit better. This is a 10-year-old kid. She's thinking like this. It's just, as a parent, I could not possibly be prouder of her. It is amazing. I don't care about the victory. I just care that she's thinking on these terms and she's going out and she's doing it. I mean, that is a priceless lesson for her for the rest of her life.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing, dude.
Right? That's how I feel. So, yeah, it was a good weekend, needless to say.
Well, if I could one up it with your own story. No.
As per Jonathan.
No. Yes, but no. This one, you'll appreciate this. So when Anna was here a couple weeks back or a week ago for the Playing with Fire documentary, she came up to the studio to check out where her dad records the podcast. And the microphones were on. I had her sit down and I asked her, Anna, we got to talk about this brick in the wall. So, of course, I pressed record.
Surreptitiously.
Yeah. So I asked her a few questions about the mindset for this. And Brad, I guess I'm asking you for permission. Would you allow me to play that now?
Oh, wow. I have not heard it, but I would unquestionably allow you to play it. Let's do it.
Nice. All right. Let me go and pull this up. So, Anna, did your dad tell you that you inspire him?
Yes.
He's told you. And has he told you why you inspire him?
Because
he told me. Can I tell you why your dad told me that you inspire?
Sure.
So he told me that what I saw my daughter Anna do has inspired me to be a better person and to challenge my own limiting beliefs. And let me tell you what he actually told me. My daughter Anna looked at something that she felt was important to her. In this case, it was swimming. She saw that other kids were getting better. And instead of just accepting that, she said, what would it look like for me to be better at swimming? And she said, every time I hop in the pool, every time I swim a lap, what I visualize that I'm doing is that I'm putting a brick in a wall. I'm building my brick wall. And your dad has taken that and used that in his own personal life and has inspired tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people using that. And I'm just curious, where does that come from? Where did you even come up with that?
I don't know. I sort of just came up with it.
What was it like when you were swimming and you saw other kids that were swimming that were faster than you? What was your thoughts when you saw that originally?
I thought that they must have worked really hard to get there and that I can do it as well.
And what did it look like for you to start doing it as well? What do you feel like you did that allowed you to get better?
Worked really hard and used the brick in the wall to make it more real.
When you hop in the pool now, are you worried about what other people are doing? What are you thinking about now when you get ready to go into a race? Is it scary?
For a swim meet, it can be.
And when you don't do as well as you want to do, when something doesn't go your way, your time is maybe just a little bit slower than you were hoping. When you get out of the pool, what are you thinking?
I wish that I did better, but there's always other chances, I think.
That's amazing. You inspire me, and I know you inspire your dad. Do you feel like anything is achievable for me if I'm willing to work hard for it?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Anything.
Brad, as a parent, what is it like for you to hear, just hear your daughter's own version of this? I know that you have been representing the brick in the wall for her on her behalf to, 100,000 plus people. But now to hear it in your daughter's own words, not for anybody else, but just talking to me about this, what this means to her. What is it like to hear that?
It's really special. It's just cool. And she's getting older. That's the funny part here is I still think of her as a little kid, but she's grown up fast and these lessons are really broadly applicable for anybody. It's cool to get to hear her say it in her own words, to you, not just to me in her bedroom while she's getting ready to go to sleep and we're talking about it. That's where we normally talk about these lessons. But yeah, to see her move beyond just me and her and honestly not be embarrassed about it. That's pretty cool that she could stand up and do that. I know she's going to be so excited to hear this. So that's very, very cool.
The transition for me is thinking about as an individual. So we'll talk about being a parent in a second, but just as an individual, when you're pursuing financial independence, at its core, you're talking about bandwidth. And once you have that bandwidth, some portion of that is being applied internally. Yes, how can I take my finances to a better place? But even more than that, where I am now is not where I'm going to be tomorrow or next week or next year. What steps, actions, and choices do I want to make that I believe will lead to a better future? So many of us just feel like we're stuck on this treadmill of life, right? And we're just trying to survive, make it to the next paycheck, make it to the next pay period. And then we can't, it's really hard to look past that. Maybe we're just looking forward to the one vacation we get with the 6 or 7 days that are allotted to us to do that. But when you're pursuing financial independence, so quickly you are able to look internally and focus on what it is that you value, what makes you happy, what does it look like to design your future. But even more than that, if you can have even a little bit more space, right? You're looking at, well, what does it look like to be that mentor to my kids, to my family? And when you can actually take the lessons that you are trying to learn and instill in yourself, and you can give a portion of that to your kids as well, how inspiring must it be to see them take up that torch this early on?
Yeah, that is a great way to put it. It's amazing. I'm kind of lost for words here. It's really, really cool. And it's just really special for me and for my whole family. So it's amazing.
All right, well, let's go ahead and circle back. I want to talk about our takeaways with Anthony. I loved his story because I think it is the story of individuals that are looking for different strategies that they can use. And when they put them together, they get radically different results. How many of us take for granted that if our parents can't pay for college, we're going to go 40 grand in debt for it? That's just that. It's one of those two. Either parents pay for it or I go 40 grand in debt for it. What Anthony highlighted for me seemed eminently replicable if you have seen someone else pattern that behavior. Everything from being an RA to looking for that first job and getting those internships, like the way he even looked at when I get a job in college, what do I want it to be able to accomplish? Pattern my own thought process. Like, yes, you could just get the most easily available job, or you could look for the secondary and tertiary benefits, which in my mind is pretty apparent. If you can work and study at the same time, that seems like winning.
Yeah, agreed. And you're absolutely right. Why can't anybody out there replicate this? To Anthony's point, it's not being an RA as a senior. You can be an RA as a sophomore. So what's cool about this is someone out there is listening to this and saying, wow, Anthony did an amazing job on this. He came out with a positive net worth. I think I can do a little bit better, actually, because I followed Anthony's story. If Anthony could go back, he would have done it slightly, quote unquote, better, right? And I say that somewhat jokingly, but he would have gotten this RA job as a sophomore. And he said, you needed to know the rules. And I think that's just such a broadly applicable lesson just for life in general. He said, you needed to take this one particular course that he hadn't taken. He didn't know to take it. But if he could go back and tell somebody starting day one of freshman year, they would take that. And they would potentially be an RA for 3 years, getting free room and board. And he said also, it's knowing the right people. I mean, Jonathan, we talk about this all the time. Even in this digital world, maybe especially in this digital world, personal connections mean everything. We see it almost guest after guest, that what helps them get a leg up It's not some scammy thing of networking and trying to meet thousands of people. It's genuine connection. We say that all the time. I almost sound like a broken record, but it's so true. I mean, this is everything in life.
But that broken record is a pattern of life, right? Whew, that's good. Write that down.
Jonathan quoted himself.
Notation timestamp, please. But I think, that's the heart of it. When you see people get these results, the emphasis that we were asking Anthony was, is this replicable? And we were just sifting through that, because if it's not replicable, why are we spending all of our time talking about it? I'm not looking for one-off situations that nobody else can emulate. There's no value for our audience there. We're looking for the patterns that we see threaded through these individuals' lives that get these radically different results. And I think that's what we saw. When he was talking about the RA position, he was basically highlighting for us a pattern that he had observed, that he had taken action on, and that worked for him. And I happen to know that in another couple of weeks, we're going to have another guest coming on, and we're going to see a lot of these same threads highlighted. And if we can identify that, you very quickly start to see what it would look like to be able to build a roadmap for yourself if you're going to be in the situation in a few years, or demonstrate or show to your child what steps they could take now to drastically offset the cost of college, if not, in Anthony's case, go to college for profit. Brad, the last thing that I feel like I just want to put a call out to the community on is this buying off your PMI. Like, all right, everybody just assumes you have to put 20% towards your home. If you can't do that, then you're going to have private mortgage insurance, PMI. And basically, there's going to be an additional cost that's not going to your interest. It's not going to your principal. It's just basically carved out to cover the mortgage company in the case that for whatever reason, you can't meet this mortgage down the road. It's just it's a underlying insurance policy. It's a cost that to many people is invisible, but it's not so invisible. It's like $100 a month. And if you can get 20% applied to the property, it will fall off. At least that's been my underlying assumption. That's what I knew about how this worked. He just did something different that I've never heard before.
Yeah, this was an odd one and brilliant, yet odd. I mean, both of us were kind of taken aback, and you can hear it in the episode. Like, wait, what did you do? I mean, I think was your response. And because it sounds strange. And regardless almost of whether this is broadly applicable, I think what's most important is everything is negotiable. That is the lesson for me, at least. I'd love to hear your lesson out of this. But to me, it's what do you get by not asking the question? You get the same result as everybody else, right? You get the same result as Jonathan and Brad, who would have just blissfully unaware paid this PMI until we got 20% plus of equity in the house. We would have went and gotten an appraisal and shown that it was 20%, and PMI goes away. That's probably 10 years down the road. What Anthony did was he said, all right, maybe this is negotiable. What's the worst that happens? I asked one question, and they said, sure, here's the payoff amount, and that's PMI.
I mean, is that a thing? Like, how would he know that? You know, we said we want to highlight things that are replicable. We won't know if this is replicable unless people in our audience actually call their mortgage company right now and say, can I prepay this or pay this off? Is there a way that I can just not do this without? I mean, I genuinely don't know. I don't even, Brad, what would the question, let's play this out. Me and you, we're going to call our mortgage company and we're going to say, can we get rid of PMI insurance? Like, is there something I can do? Can I prepay my PMI to not have it? Like, what would the question be?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be prepay, because prepay just, to me, connotates like, all right, I just want to pay a couple months of this. It's just,
can I just pay you more for no reason?
Is there a settlement amount that I can buy out the PMI?
All right, I think that's the question. So what if I'm gonna make this phone call over the next couple of weeks and just see what they say? I mean, like that sounds amazing, right?
Yeah. And hopefully there are other people out there who have done this. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some data points in the next couple of weeks to bring back, and that'll be really interesting. But again, everything is negotiable, right? The other one that he talked about, which I thought was absolutely awesome, was as he said, he house hacked in somebody else's home, which is basically somebody else who was renting out rooms. And what did he do? He saw the rack rate, right? They were asking whatever it was, $600 a month. He said, what if I prepaid for a year? And he got an enormous discount. He got it down to $400 a month. Because what is a landlord's biggest concern? That the people are just going to up and run away, or they're going to be terrible tenants. Somebody who's prepaying a year most likely is going to be a well above average tenant. And you have certainty. You're not going to have to collect this money every month. You're not going to have to beg. It's just sitting there in your bank account. So I think he said he got it for $400 a month. So he paid $4,800 for that prepaid year, got this enormous discount, potentially a third off. And he just asked the question. I'm not sure that I necessarily, at his point in life, if I would have had the wherewithal to ask that question. I think now, in fairness, I would have. I can tell you for sure I wouldn't have asked the PMI. That's like way above my head. So Anthony's got one on me there. But this is a cool question to ask. Hey, I'm in a strong financial position because I'm pursuing FI. What power do I have? Well, I might have the power to get 33% off my rent just by prepaying.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So we got some data points there. Maybe this is something that someone in our audience can take action on. Find out whether or not there's a settlement amount for your PMI over the next month. And let us know if that happens. If this is a replicable thing that people just didn't know they could ask that question, how amazing would it be for us to be able to verify that? All right, well, why don't we switch gears and go ahead and bring in some feedback and thoughts from our community. First, I want to give a shout out to Don from Tampa Bay. Says, I walked out of the office today, never to return, onward into early retirement.
Wow.
That's amazing. You know, what's incredible is throughout human history, there have been so many people that have been able to achieve this level of financial freedom early in their lives, but there's never been a platform for them to share the how and the why, and then the what are they doing next. Although Don lives in Tampa, I suspect that it's not pina coladas on a beach. But you know what? If it is for the next couple weeks, enjoy it, my friend.
Yeah, really. Good for him.
We look forward to
Don.
catching up with you and finding out what you're doing with this next chapter. All right, next I want to go and play a voicemail that we got from Claire sharing how her and her spouse, after finding the Choosify podcast and the Playing with Fire documentary, have really started to come together and form a plan for their financial future.
Hi, Jonathan and Brad. My name is Claire, listening from the great state of Missouri. I just wanted to call and first of all, thank you for all of the information you share. I found your podcast about 6 months ago, and since then, my fiance and I have put plans in place to pay off our debt by the end of next year, start investing more in our 401ks, our Roth IRAs, and we're even looking at possibly getting some rental properties. So it's all very exciting, and you guys kind of put the spark in there about what could we do if we really got intentional about it. The story I wanted to tell, though, was about the Playing with Fire documentary. I went with my fiance, and then we also took his dad with us. And his dad is a skeptic by nature. So anytime that we have talked about the FI movement or our plans to try to retire by 45 and different things like that, he has very lovingly been concerned that it is a, get rich quick scheme, or it's some sort of, evading taxes, or, something that's going to land us in trouble. And so we brought him to the Playing with Fire documentary to kind of show him what this was all about. And walking into the documentary, he was still very skeptical, but he promised to go in with an open mind. And then, an hour and a half later, we were sitting, talking, having some drinks, and he asked us what we were planning to do once we hit FI. So in an hour and a half, he went from thinking that we were secretly breaking the law to being convinced that we were absolutely going to hit FI. And I know that conversation could have gone a lot differently without the documentary, and without all of the resources that this community has offered us. So thank you to the two of you for kind of getting this all started. And then thanks to everyone in our local groups who has been answering all of our questions. The fire is spreading little by little. I'm trying to do my bit. So just thanks. And for anyone who is on the edge about going to see Playing with Fire, please do it and bring a friend who's skeptical, because it might just be what you need to get the conversation started. Have a great day, guys.
I love it, Brad. There's so much there that I feel that we could talk about and embedded in that. But the heart of it was, this is not a cult. This is a movement that you can share with your friends and family. And if you do so, their lives will be forever changed for the better.
Yeah, agreed. And I've heard a bunch of people now tell me, oh, I brought my sister who's spendy, or my husband who was not into FI, to this movie. Now they're all in. And it's really neat to see these skeptics. As Claire said, she brought her father-in-law and he changed in 90 minutes. How cool is that? Jonathan, I would be remiss if I didn't say this one quote. Just generally about FI, what could we do if we really got intentional about it? That's what Claire said. That's so cool. You can take all this information in, but you have to take action. When you figure out what you want in life and you're intentional about it and you get up off that couch, good things happen. It's wonderful to see. So thanks for the voicemail, Claire.
All right, next, Brad, I actually have some feedback. In episode 137R, we were talking about cell phone insurance and how some credit cards have this as a tertiary benefit. And would it be worth it to get that particular one? We actually got a great comment from JB, who is pointing out to us that while the Uber credit card may have cell phone insurance, The Chase Ink Business Preferred card, which is one of our all-time favorite cards, actually has this feature embedded in it as one of its offered services. And in order to activate that service, you just need to use it to pay your bill for a couple months in order to get it started. I thought that was definitely an important feature that we were to add to the previous conversation.
Yeah, that's very cool. If you have that card, I know I personally have that card, so no reason not to have free insurance. I mean, cell phone insurance, as we talked about in the other episode, is not something that I personally would pay for. I think to get insurance on an item that's only a couple $100 doesn't make sense. But man, if you have it for free coming on your credit card, that's a no-brainer.
Right. So your point is, I think the TLDR of that episode was, in our minds, when we sign up for a premium credit card, we're expecting to get a minimum of $500 of value from that, whether it be either cash back or whether it be travel rewards, etc. If you're going to give me another benefit and substitute for that, like 10% off my purchase, the value on that's going to be $10 or $15. I'm like, probably not worth it to get me to initiate and start a new card company with you. But if you already have one of these premium cards in your wallet, I happen to have this card and it already offers a cell phone insurance. I'm not just against cell phone insurance. I'm just not going to pay for it.
Right, exactly. And honestly, I wouldn't factor that into that $500 that you mentioned, because again, it's what would you have paid otherwise, right? Like, I would not have paid for this. So I don't consider that this random value that's worth anything to me. But that said, I'm not going to turn it down. So
Exactly.
Very, very cool.
Yes. All right, Brad, next I want to go ahead and read an email that we got from Rachel. She's sharing with us how her grandparents made it to financial independence starting from the bottom. I know that the show has been wanting to highlight more stories of people hitting financial independence with lower incomes, and it occurs to me that my grandparents did that. My grandpa moved from West Virginia to Cleveland, and my grandma from Kentucky to Cleveland, searching for better jobs. They met and married, and my grandpa supported the two of them and their 5 kids. First, he worked at a factory that made springs by hand punching them. Then he got a job driving a truck, eventually saving enough to buy his own and learn to do all of the mechanic work himself. He probably did this before YouTube, might I
I'm
add.
thinking so.
Do you remember, like, back in the 1990s when you would have like handbooks? Like, it would be like a manual for a 1985 Mitsubishi, whatever. You'd have one book dedicated just to this. All right, sidebar. Sorry. My dad tells stories about riding to church in it because it was the only family vehicle. They had their own garden. They never bought anything new and saved every bit they could. In his 50s, my grandpa was forced into early retirement. I don't remember all the details, but I believe he would have continued to work forever if only for the security of the paycheck. But once retired, they lived off less than the interest their investments were growing. My grandpa passed away a few years ago, but my grandma now is in an assisted living facility, still living on just the interest. The baby boomers went through hard enough times that started many of them down the path to FI, though it wasn't called that at the time. We've teased my grandparents over the years about not being able to throw away anything, but I think now that we're looking to downsize our house and make larger steps towards FI, that my grandpa would be proud, and I know my grandma is. At any rate, I thought it might be worth asking the audience if they have older relatives who are not bloggers and had normal incomes, but who have interesting stories, who might be guests on the show. Brad, what do you think?
I would love to have those guests on the show. So yeah, anybody out there that has family members that fit that bill, please get in touch with us. Send an email to feedback@ChooseFI, and we'd love to highlight those stories. It's always about stories, and we want to have every possible background covered. And this is great. And this has been a whole so far in our first couple hundred episodes. So yeah, I love it.
All right, next from the mailbag, Brad, I want to go and give a shout out to Robert announcing that he has reached financial independence. He says, I'm happy to announce that today is my first day of financial independence. I've paid off all my bills except for my mortgage payment. Now I'm on the road to boosting my savings. Second, I picked up Playing with Fire by Scott Rickens. I can barely put it down. Third, I'm posting this while volunteering to help set up a local charity walk. The more I learn about financial independence, the more I've been giving to others, giving time, giving money, just generally being in a giving spirit. I used to give all the time, but slowed down because I felt taken advantage of by a few people. You wonderful financial independence folks have helped me to realize that giving is an integral part of the financial independent lifestyle, and I thank you for it. That charity of spirit, Brad, is an incredible thing. And I think part of it is when you get to a more secure place for yourself, when you've been able to build a foundation for, this future life, I think that kind of close-fisted mindset, it becomes much easier to let go of that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know I've seen this in my own life. That scarcity mindset, as you said, the tight-fisted, close-fisted, whatever we want to call it, that mindset is normal. I mean, I think a lot of us are stuck with that, unfortunately, but we're not stuck with it forever. That's the beautiful thing. I think you can get rid of that well before FI, but I know I've seen it once I've been at FI, I'm just much more generous with my time, with my money, and it's about what I value. I mean, that is what we talk about here all the time. And when you can take your precious resources, really your time and your money and your attention, and put them where you see fit with what you value, it changes everything. And frankly, you feel good. It makes you feel good. That's kind of the secret of this, is you're doing good in the world and you feel good about yourself because you're doing something that you genuinely want to do. So yeah, I love this email from Robert, and congrats on hitting FI.
Next, now this one will be probably a little bit more fun if you're actually watching this on our YouTube channel, which you can find all of the latest video podcasts at choosefi.tv. But Mike shared his frugal win of the week with us, and he says, "Happy Sunday, my Feisters," the date of this posting. I had to say that just for that alone. "I had this job hovering over me for a while, but I finally framed our guest bathroom mirror. It took me 2.5 hours, but I think it's well worth it for $26 worth of material at Home Depot. What do you think?" So I'll have a picture of this on the video version of the podcast, but molding, $18, square blocks, $5, double-sided tape, $3. Paint was a freebie from a previous project. I mean, this is gorgeous. And I can tell you, when I was in the process of upgrading my past home before we were to move out, this was one of the things my wife was asking me about. And I was like, I don't know if people do that. Do people do, is that a thing? Can I do that? And we were actually looking at different bathroom fixtures, but this is amazing. If I had seen this post when I was having this conversation, in a heartbeat, I would have jumped on this. It's a gorgeous renovation that you can do. Like, if you have the bathrooms, you know how the cheap version of bathroom mirrors are just a single glass pane, no frame around it, usually has some sort of plastic clip holding it in place. This is a transformation. This is a bathroom transformation, and $26.
Yeah, Jonathan, this is really cool. And this reminds me of our Choosify DIY group, right? That we have on the local groups page. So I guess we have a couple of these special interest groups, and you can find that at choosify.com/local. And also, like you mentioned, this is going to be on the YouTube channel this Friday. Every single Friday roundup now, we're putting on video. So you can check that out at choosify.tv, and that'll just redirect you to our YouTube page, and just hit subscribe. And I love these videos. I'm blown away by what the team is putting together. So definitely worth checking out.
So Brad, the other piece of community feedback that I wanted to add to this was actually related to episode 136. So the title of episode 136, How to Fund Your Child's Roth IRA. And that episode was recorded with Sean, the FI tax guy. We got this email from Noah, and Noah said, "I listened to the episode and thought it was really great. I've heard the White Coat Investor talk about it a bunch, but your episode really helped break down the details. There are a couple questions or holes in the idea, so to speak, that I wanted to bring up and get your opinion on." So I am recording this episode knowing that Sean will be listening to this episode.
You're welcome, Sean.
You're welcome. "I think the idea of funding your child's Roth IRA is great, but I don't think it makes sense to think about it like that. I think it better to think of it as diverting taxable income at the parent's marginal tax rate to the child's lower marginal tax rate. Once your child has earned that income, they should be putting it, and this could be the parent doing it as the money is fungible, in the accounts that make the most sense. For the first $6,000 in 2019, that would most likely be a Roth IRA. However, that only fills up less than half of their standard deduction of $12,200. Assuming that employing them for more hours at their fair market wage isn't an issue, why not pay them another $6,200 and put that into a taxable investment account? There's nothing special about a Roth IRA, but just that it often makes sense as an early prioritization of savings. I would argue that for early retirees, prioritizing as much in pre-tax, mainly in 401k and HSA, as you can is optimal even before Roth accounts. But for a child, a Roth IRA as the first prioritization should be fine. With that, I don't see why you couldn't go further and enroll your child in a small business 401k so they can make likely Roth contributions to that, and then even mega backdoor Roth contributions after that. You could give them an employer match that they could also convert to Roth if they can't get enough hours to max the mega backdoor Roth, which how much money is this child making? All right, we're going to keep going. Which would probably be the case, since that would require in total $62,000 in earned income for them, with $6,000 in a Roth IRA, $19,000 in a Roth 401k, and then $37,000 in the mega backdoor Roth employer match. Okay, at least he acknowledges this, Brad. This is obviously a huge stretch as they would need to work a lot of hours. My son gets 25 cents a week. Of course, he's 2. This is obviously a huge stretch as they would need to work a lot of hours at whatever their fair wage is, and above the $12,200 in income, they would owe a lot of taxes on, but it's still a thought. Even if they make enough to owe taxes, they could still pay it at a lower rate than the parent. On top of that, man, he is thinking of all this. Sean is going to have a meltdown over all the detail here in the best way possible, though. All right. On top of that, and depending on the field of business, the parent could get a greater QBI deduction. So qualified business income deduction, Brad. Cool. No FICA taxes would be owed for the child when they're under the age of 18 and employed by the parent as long as it's the sole proprietorship. If it instead otherwise makes sense to file as an S Corp, then it looks like there's a workaround, and he's got an article linked. I'll have it in the show notes for today's episode. This also will not come into conflict with the kiddie tax as long as it's all legitimate earned income. Now, the big downside to all of this isn't taken into account, though, and actually this is why I really wanted to read this, Brad, is the impact on the FAFSA. So when you're paying your child a certain amount of income, they're making this money. That income will come into consideration when your child is then applying to colleges. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. Someone may correct me. One word may be wrong. The heart of it is correct. I'm not certain how the calculation works, but I know the FAFSA grants tend to be lowered way more by the applicant's assets and income than the parents. Okay, so a lot in this. Some of this, Sean will be probably giving us some feedback on in coming weeks. But the final point there is probably the biggest single takeaway: the law of unintended consequences. Okay, so if we're going to get to absolute truth, what is the best strategy and how to do this correctly for our kids, we shouldn't talk about how to get them all this income, help them earn all this income without understanding that that is going to be factored into their FAFSA application. Fortunately, your friends over here at ChooseFI have friends who already think about this stuff. We recorded an episode with Brian Ufinger, episode 114, and Sun Wu, who's one of the moderators on our Facebook group. And we are dedicating an entire episode to navigating the FAFSA and the numbers that become a consideration when you're dealing with that application process.
Yeah, and that is scheduled to come out at the beginning of November, 3 months from now. But yeah, that should be a very interesting conversation for anybody with children who are either at or approaching certainly college age.
And if you have a child while working with them and employing these tactics in between the ages of 10 and 18, earning $62,000 a year, please message us and let us know what that is so we can dial into that concept a little bit more. I would love, if there's a child out there between the age of 10 and 18 that has effectively pulled off a mega backdoor Roth, I want to talk to them or I want to talk to the parents and need to find out what's happening.
Yeah, I don't suspect there are too many, but yeah, I love that in Noah's email, how he's just so thorough. That was what was cool about this. So yeah, I mean, while this email and this level of depth,
we were playing small ball, Brad. Yeah. This was all about $3,000 a year. That was nothing. That seemed like a stretch. He's like 3,000. Hold my beer.
All right, Jonathan. Hey, we got another cool mailbag suggestion here. So Michelle wrote in with a frugal tip for those who want to read our upcoming book, ChooseFI, Your Blueprint to Financial Independence. So you can actually request that your library purchase a copy. This way you can enjoy the book and it becomes available for others in your local community to read it, which is a great frugal way to support the podcast and to spread the fire. And the cool thing, Jonathan, it's already in the system that the libraries use. So it's coming out on October 1st. But I guess they use 2 systems, one called Overdrive and the other is Baker and Taylor. And those should be available. So if you ask your library, just tell them it's available in those systems and they should be able to place a pre-order.
ChooseFI friends at the library. Our library is fantastic, Brad. My wife, I'll have to talk about this in depth a little bit later, but she is a miracle worker when it comes to finding activities for our son and doing those activities with him on a weekly basis. But I will tell you what, the heartbeat of a lot of the activities that she finds is the library.
Yeah, every time I'm coming over here, she's getting ready to leave to take Zachy to another class that they have at the Twin Hickory Library. It's amazing.
She's become a tour guide for different people. Like they're visiting in town. They're like, well, you're here. I have a child. Let's do something. She's like, oh, well, I have a list of activities. And this week we can pick from one of these 5 and they all happen to be free. Learn what your community has available. It's a really, really incredible resource.
That is absolutely awesome. So yeah, for anybody who's looking to support us, you can definitely have your library buy that book and have it available for the community. Or if you want to actually purchase it for yourself, ChooseFI.com/book.
All right, everyone. So we mentioned last week that we are rolling out a FI 101. Basically, this will be an online course, and it's meant to support you as a 30-day plus action plan that you can use to get on the path to financial independence. But even more than that, I think our goal was to create a resource for people in community that wanted to share this with a friend or a family member. I think we have always said that if someone is encountering our show, episode 100 would be a good framework, a good place to start. But what if someone wants a roadmap? What if someone actually wants to have an accountability partner, someone that they're working with and taking step by step, week by week, and actually going from having no financial ground game to the end of maybe a 30-day period, having a plan for their financial future? That's what this FI 101 is. And we are rolling out the wait list for that. Brad, can you share with the audience what is the best way to get on that wait list if they want to be one of the ones to pilot it?
Yeah, just head to choosefi.com/FI101. And yeah, you'll sign up for the waitlist. This should go live the first week of September. And this has been in the making for the last 18 months with the educators group that your wife, Danny, and Rob have been heading. And this is the first step of really launching a ton of financial literacy and FI education that we're planning on spearheading over the next couple of years. So super excited about this.
It is definitely one of the most exciting things going on at ChooseFI right now. So I would love for you to do that. Again, Brad gave you the link there. Please consider going there today and putting your name on that list if you want to be one of the first ones to pilot this. ChooseFI.com/FI101. All right. Now, unfortunately, that is going to bring this episode to a close. Now, as you know, we like to finish every week by doing a drawing for a copy of a book that we have found useful. There's 3 books that we offer. The first is J.L. Collins' book, The Simple Path to Wealth. The second is Dominic Cortuccio's book, Design Your Future. And the third book from Vincent Puglisi, Freelance to Freedom. If you want to enter the drawing, all you need to do is just go to choosefi.com/iTunes, follow the instructions there, leave us a short written review on either iTunes or Stitcher, and then send us an email to feedback@choosefi.com letting us know that you left a review and what screen name you left it under. We give away 1 book for every 5 written reviews that we get, and we announce the winner on the Friday Roundup. Brad, how many winners do we have today?
All right, Jonathan, we have 1 winner today, and the winner is Brian, and he said, "Hope at last. I was a frustrated 50-year-old tired of banging my financial head on the wall. I thought that my life would stay on this earn and spend treadmill until my dying day. To be honest, I was a negative crabby pants 50-year-old acting like a 2-year-old, mad at the world because I had some cool possessions, but no meaningful savings. Since discovering ChooseFI, I've become a more lighthearted and happy human being. I've changed my mindset and am well on my way to changing not just my financial life, but my entire life. Thank you, ChooseFI."
I have never heard negative crabby pants in a sentence, and I'm so excited to hear you read it on the podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Brian.
All right, guys, at the very end of the episode, I'm going to give a shout out to the screenings for Playing with Fire that have their ticket threshold coming up. But in the meantime, the fire is spreading, my friends. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to Choose FI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging around. We just wanted to take just a moment and give you the updates for the Playing with Fire documentary, the screening tour that's happening all across the country. I'm going to take just a couple minutes and mention the screenings that have not yet hit the ticket threshold that have their deadline approaching over the next couple weeks. All right, so working our way through the month of August, the deadline date to hit the threshold, it's in chronological order. On August 12th, Lynchburg, Virginia, and Ames, Iowa. August 13th, Hickory, North Carolina. August 14th, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Spokane Valley, Washington, Kauai, Hawaii, Matane, Louisiana, Atlanta, Georgia. On August 15th, Honolulu, Hawaii, Hollywood, Florida, Indianapolis, Indiana, St. Louis, Missouri. August 19th, Harker Heights, Texas. August 20th, Fort Worth, Texas. August 21st, Anaheim, California. August 22nd, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Ammon, Idaho. Warrensburg, Missouri, and Birmingham, Alabama. So those are the screenings who have their ticket threshold coming up over the next several weeks. If you're hearing this and you're having one of these two reactions, one being, oh wow, there's a screening that's happening in my area, I want to go to it, or two, you did not hear a screening in your area, but you had a similar reaction, the easiest way to find out if there is a screening in your area is to go to choosify.com/tug. That's TUGG. Yes, there will be one in your area, and it's going to be awesome. All right, friends, we'll see you next time.